Hello everyone, my name is Laura Solito and I am one of the founding members of Inspiring Females, and I am here with Michelle Feeney, who is the founding member of Floral Street, a contemporary award-winning British fragrance brand, and I will be asking her a few questions. So Michelle, can you tell me a bit about your impressive career so far and your journey to founding Floral Street?
Okay, well, I have been lucky enough to be in the beauty industry for over 30 years. I started life in London in 1983, delivering clothes and working for a fashion show production company and fashion PR when those things were all really new. So working for really inspiring women at that point in my life was amazing. And I won't go too much into my career, but I've never applied for a job ever. So it's always been somebody's asked me to move or they've had a recommendation. And from that moment in 1983, my career, I just was very open and my career just sort of unfolded as I took each role. I worked for another incredible woman called Lynn Franks, who was the founder of the Lynn Franks PR agency. And if you've ever seen Absolutely Fabulous, that was based on our agency. Because we did the PR for French and Saunders, and they used to come in all the time, and Lynn, it was pretty true to life, I must say. So it was a lot of fun.
Wow, amazing!
I know. I then, at age 26, fell in love, of course, and my then boyfriend was a record producer and songwriter, and he had a big opportunity in New York, and he asked me if I'd come, and I gave up my job and I rented out my flat, and off I went on a big adventure with no particular plan, and I ended up founding my own agency in Manhattan, and my first client was a hair company called Bumble and Bumble. And I helped them transform and launch a product line. And then my work in New York in the first 2 years got me the attention of many people in New York, including Estee Lauder companies. And then I had a phone call from Estee Lauder companies, and they said, would I come and talk to them? And they had headhunted me basically for a very big global job. And it was on a very trendy cosmetic brand at the time called Prescriptives. And I took the job. By this time, I was a single mom in New York as well. I had my son, who was 1.5. And I had this big global job, and I had an office on the 42nd floor of the General Motors building overlooking Central Park.
Wow.
And I used to close the door and go, oh my God, because I hadn't had a very traditional education nor career, and I didn't have a plan, and I'd ended up in this, amazing position. And then that was when my massive global learning about brands, about beauty industry, every facet of it came about. So from product inception, products, research and development, the science behind it, all the way through to selling it and distribution channels and global. So I really, really learned a lot. And I stayed with Estee Lauder companies for 11 years of the 13 I was in New York. And my final role was Estee Lauder had acquired the brand MAC Cosmetics, and I went into MAC with the president. I was a second employee, and was able to evolve and launch MAC Cosmetics in 40 countries around the world. So
Wow.
and work with it. Also, that entailed working in the MAC AIDS Fund, which had been established by the original owners, and we kept it on board. So I had a real social responsibility role within the beauty industry as well. And it was almost like a marriage made in heaven, where you could really be successful, be creative, and help people not only in their daily lives feeling good about themselves, but also genuinely help AIDS, the fight against AIDS around the world.
That's amazing. You have jammed in so much.
I have, and that was only, you know, I haven't talked about the last 16 years. So then I came to England and came back. I got married at 40. I had my daughter, who's now in South Hampstead, when I was 41. And I stepped into a brand called Saint-Tropez, tanning brand, and it was a private equity deal, which meant you had a lot of pressure to turn it around. It wasn't achieving very much, and I turned it from being a fake tan into a fashionable tan, and eventually got Kate Moss to work with me on the advertising. And then we sold that brand, and that was the first time I was very well paid at Estée Lauder companies and had all sorts of benefits there, but that was the first time I made, as an independent woman, you know, quite a chunk of money. And I decided to put that towards building a new company for myself, which is Floral Street.
Wow. that is amazing. It's great how you've just managed to do just so much. It's really inspiring to hear that story. Would you share one thing which has inspired you to work in the cosmetic and beauty industry, like initially? Women empowering other women. It was, you know, I am now 56. I was born in 1963. I had incredible parents, but, you know, the jobs that women could do and get to the top, really, in reflection, were not that many. And I think the fashion and beauty industry in the 80s, as I said to you, so, you know, came about, and it was lots of women starting their own companies that had kind of been inspired by the 60s and the freedom of that, and also the movement in liberation during the 60s. And then they were leading and empowering other women that were coming through to do things differently. There was no ceilings put on my life, you know, in that respect. And the beauty industry was just an evolution of that, because it is an industry for women by women. And even if you are a single mom and you're a nail technician, you're able to work at home and earn some money. And you can also, on the other side of that, be one of the top scientists in a laboratory creating new beauty products. So it's got this massive, massive range of opportunities to work. And I think it's really has been a very empowering industry for women. Fantastic, thank you. So what is the best aspect of running your own business?
Making your own mistakes, right? So when you work in bigger companies, I think that might be one of your other questions, but you have to be part of a group of people on decision making, and until you get to the top point of decision making, you have to learn to bend and try and get your ideas across. Whereas, although it's very scary when you've got your own company and you're responsible for your own mistakes, they are at least your mistakes. So if somebody else in a bigger company makes a mistake and you have to be part of that, you haven't learned really from that, I think.
Yeah, it's just kind of like going with it and, you know, following it through, even if it doesn't work out, and how do you bounce back, I suppose, from that.
Yeah, and I think and also being able to be fully creative and pulling together a really interesting, great team. We happen to be all female yet again, and you know, I'm absolutely loving the independence of my ideas coming to fruition.
Yeah, fantastic, thank you. So what is the most challenging aspect of obviously running your own business, and how does this compare to working for a already established brand?
All the risk is yours, you know. That it's the opposite of what I've just said about what's best about it. Is also what is most challenging about it, in a way. In that, if I make a decision and it doesn't go say it costs me money, because my husband and I have invested our own money in this. So if it costs me money, then that is a challenge. But I think more than that is we're growing. Floral Street is really growing globally, and we've got masses of opportunities coming in. But I haven't got a big organization that I can say, oh, they want to launch us in Japan, but the team are already there. And so when I worked for Estee Lauder companies out of New York, most countries that we started to launch into already had an infrastructure in those countries that we could tap into. But now I'm having to forge my own infrastructure or do it on a freelance basis, or, and we've already launched in Australia, Canada, America with Floral Street via Sephora's and Mecca's. And my challenge is I can see how big it can be, but if it's your own company, you haven't not even got money resources, it's actually manpower resources and structure to perhaps go as fast as you'd like.
Yeah, just trying to, access them as well as, it's amazing. Yeah. So what top tips would you recommend to young people who are interested in becoming an entrepreneur?
I worry that you all have got this word entrepreneur as a big part of your vocabulary right now. I think if I look back on my life and everything I've done, I've always had an entrepreneurial spirit. So when I went into Estee Lauder companies, I had 10 interviews, and one of those was with Leonard Lauder himself, who was the son of Estee Lauder herself, and he's built the company to be really big. And I've got a mental block on where I was going there. Sorry.
No, you're right.
What we were talking about.
Of course, no. What are your top tips you would recommend to young people who are interested in becoming entrepreneurs?
Yes,
yeah.
So he said to me, we want you for your entrepreneurial spirit in our company, because they'd realised they had to buy other brands in order to grow, and they were buying brands from true entrepreneurs that had started their own, and their infrastructure couldn't quite cope with that entrepreneurial thinking. So if you like, I became I could read what the Mac owners had originally thought, gone through, and translate it into the bigger corporation. So I think my advice to you all is be entrepreneurial every day in your thinking and the way that you approach things, and learn. Don't think you have to start everything when you're 21 and you have to build it, and hold on to perhaps an idea or a goal that you have, but get some experience under your belt. And the thing we were talking about before about making mistakes, it's really valuable to get internships even, or your first jobs where you're not responsible for much, because you actually get to watch other people in action. Well, hopefully, if we all get back to offices, and you learn more from seeing other people make their mistakes, and learn about businesses from the inside. But hold on to your dream and your idea, and it's generally a matter of timing. And mine, I didn't launch my brand till I was 53. It's a long time, right? But I have gained so much experience and joy and global, in work over those other years, that I'm making less mistakes when I have jumped into being an entrepreneur. But you can be entrepreneurial in your spirit every day, and you can work in other people's companies and have an entrepreneurial spirit, and apply those ideas, and have other people help you think through your ideas to see if they're valid.
Fantastic. Yeah, that's really, really great. And I think especially for people that maybe don't want to kind of launch their own brand, but have that, like you say, entrepreneurial spirit, I think that's really great to kind of see that in your work where you are as well. I think that's great.
And even if you're a researcher or something, we're going through this at the moment, and science has come way to the forefront now, hasn't it, during lockdown and corona. And we're seeing, a female in Oxford lead the way in the world as to trying to find, an antidote to this. And I'm sure that person, scientific as they are, didn't get there by not being entrepreneurial and not trying new things. So I think we often see these awful TV shows with Sir Alan Sugar in, where it's just not like real life, and you think that means being entrepreneurial, but it absolutely doesn't. You can that spirit, you can carry that spirit. You don't have to work for yourself, and you can innovate and change. And eventually, maybe some people will go forward to have their own business, but it's not the be all and end all.
Brilliant, thank you. So you refer to Floral Street as an upstart brand. Can you explain what this means and your reason to take this approach?
We're a challenger brand. That was a sort of a phrase that was used a tremendous amount in the 90s, challenger brand. And it's come through to now. But it means I wanted to challenge this particular aspect of the beauty business to change. There wasn't any sustainable packaging. People weren't explaining what ingredients were in fragrance. And if you look at the evolution on other like food, commodities, we know where our meat comes from. We're looking at the source of where ingredients come from. We're asking a lot of questions. We're becoming connoisseurs. We're learning what tastes good and what doesn't taste good. And I don't think anybody had done that for fragrance. So I wanted to come in and open up the doors and say, come on in, let me explain fine fragrance to you. You shouldn't be watching some dreadful TV commercial where all my clothes fall off and, you get the guy or you get the girl if you buy this particular perfume. So this was really about taking my experience of what I'd seen the founders of MAC do for makeup, because makeup artistry wasn't seen as a career before MAC. And it definitely wasn't seen as something you could teach somebody. And I wanted to do a little bit of the same for fragrance. And in doing that, in launching with a completely compostable package and saying, I'm going to tell you every ingredient that's in this, and do you want to learn with us? I was challenging the big brands who have big money to say, why have they got cellophane wrap around the outside of the perfume, that's bad for the environment? So that's why, and just one day I just thought, we're the upstart. We're not a startup. We are a startup, but we're more of an upstart because we are really, really attempting to lead the way and also challenge other companies to do the same.
Yeah, I think that's so important as well to consider, because there's definitely been a rise in kind of concern for, the environment and sustainability and sustainable, like you were saying with food, sustainable eating, and why shouldn't packaging have the same kind of values? I think that's really great that you've had that as a value throughout your brand as well.
And the other thing I think, which is quite important for a lot of you, I mean, you're so blessed being part of this school system that you're all within, that empowers you to be who you want to be, and says to you, get the right education, challenge yourself. Even what you're doing today, and you've been so entrepreneurial being a founding member of setting this up. But I keep losing my thread here. I'm so sorry. It must be the sunny day or something. What we were talking about? Oh yes. No. Okay, fine. Yeah. So basically, fragrance, I felt, had been sold to women as sexual. And so we don't have the word sexy in any of our vocabulary at all to describe any of the fragrances or any of the things within it. And I think we've just got much more powerful words to own our own feelings. Not saying don't have that feeling or enjoy it, but owning it, not being told you have to be it. And seeing what you all are, watching and seeing and learning, I think it's really important for modern brands to say, make this yours and let's appeal by being more clever than just being sexy.
Yeah, and I think actually for me with fragrance as well, a lot of it isn't about, like you're saying, being sexy. It's about, personally for me, it's like linking with like specific smells is who I relate to different people and having like memory in that smell. And
Yeah.
I know like when I'm with my friends, if they'll smell kind of maybe the perfume I'm wearing, they're like, I know she's nearby, or like in
Oh, it's
that's what you
amazing.
like associate with someone, especially maybe if you've lost someone. So I know if I smell like a particular perfume, I'll think of like my grandma. And
Yes.
it's just like that, and I just think that's such a lovely thing to take away, like you're saying, that whole sexy vibe. It's supposed to, I think it's quite warming to recognize the smell like that.
I think it really is, and the sense of smell is the most powerful. And I think what I want to do is if you were to come into our store or speak to us and you said, oh, my grandmother used to smell like this, and we'd help you sort of say we'd help you work out why you like that as well.
Yeah, there's like a key aspect to it, isn't there? And I think that's great that you have that ingredients as well, that you can find that rather than just like necessarily like it's only in this bottle, where I think that's great.
Yeah. Okay, good.
Thank you. So can you tell us a little bit about how you market Floral Street products? From looking at your website, you have some core brand beliefs. So if you could tell me a bit.
Well, again, but being part of the upstart, I felt it really important that we explained who we were. We're new. We don't spend any money on advertising. We don't, we don't get, have any celebrity. That's another thing about fragrance. They're always signing a celebrity where, these ridiculous commercials. And it costs a lot of money, so it means that they're not spending the money on necessarily the product delivery to you and all that kind of thing. So I decided to be honest and open about our positioning, and we had to sort of explain, because we launched this two and a bit years ago, and we had to explain at that point why it was in a carton like this, that you wouldn't expect fragrance in. So I thought it was easy to say we've got principles, and these are what our principles are, and we're going to live up to them. So we talk about that. We also have a phrase which says, who will you be today? So you might match yourself to one of our fragrances because it's how you feel that day. And I think another thing about fragrances, historically they've been, there's a signature fragrance. Well, modern living isn't about that, and it's how you feel that day. Or if you've got an important meeting, you might want to wear a different fragrance to give a different image of yourself at that point that matches what you're wearing and feeling. So I wanted to get that across to people. So it's really been a sort of a word of mouth building. We're doing a lot online now, obviously, and our store. And I also created this role called a floralista, and it meant that we educated all the people in the store with our fragrance house, Robertet, and they had as much knowledge to be able to talk to you in the store. So it changed the way in which really we were talking about fragrance.
Yeah, fantastic. And like you said, like, who do you want to be today? It's like choosing a different outfit, or and that's such a big brand, and you shouldn't necessarily feel like you can only stick to one. And I think that's really great for expression, because scent is just so important. Like, that's what your smell is such a powerful tool, that I think that's great with like impression and what you were saying about that.
But also that's linked, if you look at the way the industry has asked people to buy fragrance, it's pretty expensive for fine fragrance. It can be like £150. And then I realised when I sort of had a gap year at 51 and took myself out of everything I knew just to observe what was going on in the world and see what was changing, and watch my own children. My son wasn't he was a young adult by then, and see what they were responding to. And what you don't buy says a lot about you as much as what you do buy. And also, when you look at the fragrance industry, it was very expensive, and lots of people would say, oh, I only keep it for best because it's expensive. And I was like, well, no. Oh, sorry. I wanted to sort of change that and say, we're going to give you fine fragrance, it's 20% fragrance oil, and we're going to help you smell really great. But guess what? You can buy a 10 ml for £24. You know, it's accessibility. So once you start to unravel in business why particular items or things are priced the way they are, it stops people coming in. I think that the fragrance industry was about keeping people at bay and charging a lot of money, rather than saying, here's something for you. And that is about the fact that they have an advertising campaign, so it's a lot of money. So it all backtracks in, really.
Yeah, and I think sometimes the advertising can make you, especially when they're so expensive, it's just, oh, I'd never buy that anyway, because you just can't afford it. And I think having that accessibility and to wear it freely with, like, you know, so you can smell really nice every day, not having to worry about how much is left in the bottle, and when can you buy your next refill, or how long will this last. I think that's kind of great that you've kind of taken that out of the way, so it's really open to everybody to, you know, if they want to buy this.
Yeah.
Okay, so what has it been like working as a business owner amidst COVID-19? So what have you learned from this experience, and what would you like to take forward from it?
Okay, well, I lived through September 11th in New York. And when this first started to happen, I felt like it was just literally the day after or the week after September 11th. It felt the same feeling, this anxiousness and people not knowing what to do. So I didn't panic, because obviously I did live through September 11th, and although business was extremely tough for a very long time in New York and America after that, we did come back. So what I did with COVID, or have been doing, was really laser sharp looking at what was working. Luckily, we've set ourselves up to be an e-commerce business, and we're doing well. And we also have candles and home diffusers, and they're selling really well because people's space, wants to smell nice. So I've just laser focused on what we need to do, what we need to let go of for the future. And I think what COVID has done for me is sharpen my pencil, you know. It's made me taken a really good hard look at what I've been doing for the last 2 years. And I'm seeing it as an opportunity to reset and go forward. So once I knew that actually our business was going to survive, because we're actually doing a lot of sales online here and in all around the world where we're on e-commerce. We launched Selfridges online 2 weeks ago. That was expansion. Expansion during COVID. It's made me really value the great team I've put together, and how we as a team have joined together on Zoom and really worked hard to keep it going and keep in the direction. So, and it's made me I've read a few more future books about world without work and how it's going to really change. And I think anybody who thinks we're just going to go back to normal in the retail world and e-tail world is wrong. It's an escalation of change that we potentially need as a world, with our environment, which I'm obviously very interested in, and with the way we are towards each other. And I'm pretty sad that in general there isn't that many great world leaders at the moment that are willing. They're still clinging on to sort of how it was, and I think we have to move into how it will be. So I'm seeing it. At first I thought I'd have to pause the business, but that hasn't happened, and it's brought tremendous clarity to me, actually.
Yeah, and I think, like you've been saying, the values of your business are really kind of standing strong at times like this, because suddenly everyone's got real interest, even more so in the environment. And as we don't necessarily, because of the economic market is, having products like you're saying that can make you feel great, like lighten up your house with like your diffusers or your scents. It's a lovely product to have to buy, especially in times like this, because you can still enjoy it. I
Yeah,
think that's great.
and you can share. Lots of people are sending relatives they can't see or friends they can't see a candle, and just saying, missing you, and my daughter and I have been sending a hell of a lot out from the house to sort of influencers and online, and family members or members of my family that are older that are finding it challenging, and just the joy that fragrance can bring has made me know that I'm doing the right thing and I'm on the right path.
Definitely. So can entrepreneurs be change makers?
Yes, absolutely. But you can be a change maker. I really believe that you don't need money necessarily to make change. In fact, the opposite, more an idea, a challenging idea, or work within systems where you can change things. Like when I was responsible for the Mac AIDS Fund at the beginning, the big issue with AIDS was in Africa, and I literally went to the United Nations and knocked on the door of the UNDP and said, a company's allowed to give you money. I really didn't know if a company could, and they were like, come on in. And the next thing I know, I'm sitting on a board at the UN in New York, and I'm part of a group that is entitled, AIDS in Africa. And we had a top journalist from the New York Times who had AIDS. We had people from all different African countries. Some of us didn't speak each other's languages. And that's where I learned about this word mobilization, and the fact that if you can mobilize a group of people by your idea or your action to make change, it happens. And we ended up giving money to Kofi Annan, who was then the head of the UN. I learned tremendous amount. I was very naive. I thought you just sort of sent out videos. It was pre-internet, and that you could educate people about AIDS. But in Africa, you needed to engage singers and top artists, because they would have to go to villages and sing messages and things like that. So I was learning about communication, and we ended up presenting a check in the UNDP in the big hall to Kofi Annan, and I had signed an artist called Mary J. Blige to the Mac AIDS Fund, and she performed on stage there, and I was just like, wow, pinch me. I'm in my early 30s, I haven't applied for a job, I end up in the UN, and I've made change for Africa and AIDS. I've stimulated some money towards that, and that money, which was $750,000 at the time, which is quite small in effect, helped them engage the Gates Foundation and different things to raise the level. And I then got to work with, Bill Clinton and his AIDS, so it was all, you can absolutely make change, but do it in the right way, do it in a mobilizing way, and an engaged and smart way.
Yeah, I think that's so clear. Like, that's such a great message as well, because definitely so many people are like helping charities right now.
Mm-hmm.
And actually it shows that, as well as by doing your small bit, but as you're saying, like mobilization is part of a bigger cause, that's what people need to kind of get this boost and like programs lifted and kind of growing. So I think that's such a great message to show that, if you work together, great things you can kind of achieve.
I think that's it. It's working together. I think women are really good at working together, really good at it, because their ego is different. I found anyway in my life, there's different levers to why, how your ego works. And I think women just really generally, not all women, but generally get great pleasure from being in a group that can work together, like being on the netball team or whatever.
Yeah. They kind of have that support that, that, like you were saying, that empowerment, so that when you're actually working together, they kind of have that secret underlying, almost understanding, that support. And I think it's just so it's great to work with women, definitely. And how your company is, like you've said, just women, I'm sure is really empowering as well.
I also think I don't know what your other questions are, but before I forget it, because I seem to be forgetting a lot today. That's my age. I really urge you, young women, to take a look at what's happening in the world right now while you're a little bit locked down. And the fact that the west coast of America, where all the tech companies are reinventing our future. And the majority of those companies are male-led. And if I was as clever as you all are, and as well educated as you all are, and as confident as you all are at your younger ages, I would really say, if you want to be a change maker, look at a bigger, longer picture. Start to read The Economist and see what's happening in the world economies and see where the world's going, and say, how can I be a part of that change that is, it's the fourth industrial revolution is happening right now, and you want to be a part of that decision making, not just following on what some guys thought again.
Yeah. Definitely. Well, it kind of touches on my last question, but I'll ask anyway, because I'm sure you've got some fantastic advice. So finally, we want to obviously empower kind of young women listening to become change makers themselves. So what one piece of advice would you offer them?
Don't be afraid to make mistakes. Reset the word mistake in your head. I don't think there are that many mistakes or failures. I think, well, maybe mistakes, but not failures. You just go in different directions than you thought you would. So don't be afraid. Do it in a professional way, but don't be afraid. I'm sure. How did you start inspiring change makers? You had an idea and you thought, oh, I'm going to go and ask somebody if I can do this. Don't be afraid to know that you're important, and that. And not everybody's a change maker either. That's fine. You need people like me who are willing to perhaps lead change, and you need others who are willing to take that and follow up on that and get with the program. It takes a whole team, of people to make change happen and things happen. But don't be afraid that your thinking and your idea is going to be laughed at or disregarded. Make and don't stop having ideas, and don't stop challenging. Really, if you really feel strongly about the way something is, you might not be able to change it at 18, as I couldn't particularly. I saw injustices and different things I disagreed with, but I didn't have the power to make that change. And over my life, I've learnt that by experience, by putting yourself on the line a bit with an idea, and eventually getting to a point where people listen to you, you can make change.
Yeah, no, that is such great advice. Thank you. So I'm just going to close off the interview here, but thank you so much, Michelle, for your really insightful and inspiring words and sharing your career journey with us. I've just particularly loved how you say, and you keep repeating to make your own mistakes and don't be afraid of it. And if you have that idea or that goal, to just hold on to it and kind of go for it. I think that's just so great, and it's something that's definitely stuck with me, and I'll be taking that away and hopefully kind of thinking that through as I progress into my kind of career journey too.
Okay, so, I've got one last thing to add though to that.
Go for it. No, of course.
A lot of people say to me, you've been really lucky. And when you live in America, there's a saying that there's no such thing as luck. It's opportunity meets preparation. And I think that is really, if you're open to opportunity and you have prepared yourself for that moment and the two align, then you've got a chance, So it's not about people being lucky. It's about staying open to see what comes in. Don't over plan life, because look what's just happened, Yeah. all the plans have gone out the window. So I think as a young female in 2020, don't over plan. Just be open.
Yeah. Brilliant. So thank you. So I hope that you and everyone else watching stays safe and well, and I hope that you've all enjoyed this interview and it has given you some top tips of becoming change makers yourself. So thank you so much, and thank you, Michelle.